Yes, indeed, folks. You're listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, Total Biscuit. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Big Red Kitty, and sorry for breaking your website. Yeah. My concern is that was just the live listeners. Oh, dear. So, that will be 2 websites I've killed this week. And, thankfully, none of them were mine. Unfortunately, they were all... yeah. So, earlier this week, if you haven't been paying attention to CynicalBrit.com, and you should have been, I put up a State of Play yesterday, which is sort of my news roundup. If I've got stuff to say, I'll put it in the State of Play update. And in this case, what we've got is an interview that I did with a podcast called Fragcast, which is part of fragworld.com. I did an interview with them. I sort of... Oh, so actually, it's fragworld.org, get it right. I kind of linked it on my YouTube, and their server was dead for half the day. So I've got to apologise to the guys behind Fragworld for that, and also now to Big Red Kitty because we killed his site as well. Hopefully by the time you guys listen to the podcast, it'll be sorted out, but considering the number that listen to the podcast, I'm thinking no. Oh dear. Okay, please don't go to Big Red Kitty for a couple of days. Honestly, let it calm down. We'll be alright. Fantastic guy, he knows his stuff. And he's a awesome radio personality. Looking forward to hearing if he's got anything in the pipeline in terms of podcasts. He certainly should do. Right. So, what am I going to talk about this week? Well, some cool stuff came into the game. The first thing was they made us download the entire Cataclysm beta again. Why? Because Blizzard hates you. Yes, indeed. They hate everything about you. You are disgusting lice to them. You must die. You must be destroyed! You must be buried under bandwidth! And that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to say, hey, that Cataclysm client of yours, it's useless! And now you must re-download it. All 17 glorious gigabytes! Oh... Have mercy, Blizzard! I only have 2 meg down! It took me an entire day and night to download Cataclysm. There's 40 days and 40 nights I spent downloading the Cataclysm beta. I crossed mighty seas and fought off sea monsters and angry whales, who were particularly and unusually territorial, but nonetheless angry whales. I sailed across the Sea of Wrath. I sailed across the Sea of less wrath. I sailed across the sea of mild annoyance, the kind that you get when you drop your keys down the back of the sofa and you have to fish for them. And then I arrived on the glorious shores of the streaming beta client, which didn't work. I love testing. It's awesome. It's awesome. Oh dear. Dear, dear, dear. So, they have a new client which apparently allows you to stream data from in the game, so you don't have to download the entire thing again. Which is nice, supposedly nice, anyway, but it didn't really work all that well. So I loaded about half of it, and it said, it's got 3 stages. It's got red, yellow, and green. So red means you can't play because there isn't enough stuff installed. Yellow means, well, you can play, maybe, but you might experience some issues. And green means, we're pretty much got everything, you should be good to go, but you might experience a couple of loading delays. So I loaded it up on green, sat on the loading screen for 5 minutes, at which point the client crashed. So I'm thinking, well... A client crash could, I suppose, be construed as a few issues, maybe, possibly a little bit of a problem, but there you go. But I like the idea. It's the thought that counts, I suppose, isn't it? And beta is beta, or beta is beta, or vita, veta, vita, whichever you prefer. Your pronunciation is entirely subjective as far as I'm concerned. Beta makes more sense. I don't like saying beta. It sounds like I'm going to go and hit someone in the face. I am playing the beta. Yes, quite. And then you get a little bit confused when I say, well, my wife is playing the beta. Yes, so one could call it the wife beta. And then everything kind of goes horrible from there on in. You get arrested, thrown in jail, lose custody of the children, sentenced by the next 20 years in a gutter. Yeah. It's not advisable. That's why I say beta, folks. Beta is a terrible word. Right. So, this new streaming client... Right now, I've got the whole thing downloaded, but it's still streaming stuff in. So if I log into Ogrimmar right now, for instance, it's weird. The launcher says it's 100% done, but it still says there's 4 GB left to download. I don't know which is true. Obviously, I can log in straight away. It says 100%, but it said 4 gig remaining. What do you mean 4 gig remaining? You said it's at 100%, which is true. So I log in, And what ends up happening is that the terrain appears out of nowhere. So if I'm logging into Orgrimmar, I am suspended in midair and I can see basically nothing. And over the course of about 30 seconds or so, it builds up. So it takes a little bit of time. Now, I don't really know why it does this, because supposedly I've got all of it installed. Apparently not. I don't know. I imagine that's what's supposed to happen, but I would think that that's just a beta issue. Whatever the case, streaming client is cool, and it's supposed to allow you to start playing patches before you get all of them. That's a big deal. That's a very good thing indeed. So that's totally cool, and hopefully it'll work properly on release. Right now it really doesn't, but hey. So that's just a little bit of information about how that actually works. Now, the thing that I was most excited about seeing in this latest beta build is Reforging. Reforging is... It's not exactly been one of the Cataclysm features they've been trumpeting from the rooftops. They seem to have this odd idea about what sells and what doesn't. But that said, having seen how many people have watched my Worgen and Goblin videos, I think they might be onto something there. People care about new races and stuff like that. New class and race combinations. God's sake, my Mulgore videos have 300,000 views each. Mulgore's boring! Why are you watching me? Why would you do this? If I posted a 10-minute video of me doing nothing but making an omelette, would you watch that? That's a terrible question to ask, because you probably would. But whatever the case, it's a feature that hasn't been trumpeted from the rooftops. It hasn't been advertised or marketed too much, but it's actually really cool. So, there is a video on my website. Well, actually, it's not true. If you listen to the podcast, it will be on my website by that point. At the moment, it's just on my YouTube channel. I will get around to updating my website. It takes time. I'm busy, damn it, busy. Oh, yeah. Now, this video will show you exactly what Reforging involves. It's really not very complicated. So, here's the deal. Right now, you can go to a Reforging dude, and you'll give him one of your items. You put it in the box. And what you can do is you can take any secondary stat, and you can take 40% of that stat and change it into another secondary stat. So what do I mean by secondary stats? Well, there's two kinds of stats. There's primary and there's secondary. Primary is stuff like int, stamina, agi, strength, and whatever the other ones are. But not spirit. That's the weird thing. Spirit is actually a secondary stat right now. It's a little bit odd. Secondary stats include things like haste, crit, hit, spirit, mastery, parry, dodge. I don't know what the others are. I think that probably about covers it right now. Bear in mind that some stuff like AP and I think Armor Pen as well has all been gotten rid of at present. They are trying to strip down some of those stats and rebuild the whole stat system from the ground up. Mastery's new, and Mastery affects your masteries, oddly enough. Shocking, I know. So, what Mastery does is, when you get into Cataclysm, you're going to have something called a Mastery, right? And that Mastery is going to be bound into your spec. So, you have... The Mastery consists of 3 elements. You've got 2 stats, which are spec-specific. So, wow, spec-specific is really hard to say. Let's not use that. Anyway, you take it and say I took fire. Most likely I would get haste and crit. Like, yeah, I think it's haste and crit. It might be something else. It's not complete yet anyway. They had it in the game and then they took it out and they're going to put it back in. Yeah, you know how it goes. So, one of the big stats for that is crit. So, if I get Mastery, it'll buff up those 2 stats that are most appropriate to my spec. So, if I'm a Fire Mage, I would like... Well, I would like spell damage, I would like crit. You know, that's a big deal for me. So, give me that. Okay, there you go. Now, the cool bit about it is that there's a final component to Mastery. Mastery gives you a very specific ability. In the case of Mage Fire, for instance, it's Flash Burn. It's a double ignite. Arcane gets an ability whereby their damage goes up depending on how much mana they have remaining in their mana pool. So it becomes optimal to keep your mana as high as possible so that you can do as much bonus damage as possible. Everyone has a Mastery. Each spec has a Mastery. And you have to be in that spec as a primary spec in order to receive that Mastery bonus. And the Mastery stat buffs it. So getting Mastery is really important, but it depends on specs. Some of the Masteries might not be so great. Some of them will be really awesome, like Flash Burn, for instance. I'm all over that. You know, I want to buff that up as much as I can. So I'll take some Mastery. And what you can do with Reforging is you can take some useless stat, and you can transfer some of it over to a different stat, like, say, Mastery. So an example that I did on the video is I took a sword, and it had some hit and some crit on it. I took some of the hit off because I was overcapped, and I swapped it for something else. I swapped it for crit, or I could swap it for haste, or dodge if I want to mage tank. Don't judge me. And that's all Reforging is. You pay a little bit of a fee, you can change one of those stats, and you can recover it at any time. So you just pay another fee to reset it back to its original stat. Now you can only change one stat, and you can only change 40% of that stat. So it's a tweak, yeah? It allows you to min-max, it allows you to alter your stats somewhat, it doesn't allow you to completely change the weapon. Like, I can't take an Azure Song Mage Blade and make it a strength weapon with tons of haste on it. That would just be dumb. And you cannot make primary stats into other primary stats, or indeed make secondary stats into primary stats. So, no transferring hit to int, nothing like that. The main reason for that is it would probably just end up being OP. Bear in mind that a lot of weapons do have, well, not so much weapons, but armor have way more primary stats than they do secondary. So say, if I've got a robe that's got 200 int on it, it's probably going to have maybe 60 or 70 haste. So if I were able to change 40% of that int, that's a huge number. Massive. And especially with stuff like stamina, there's going to be an awful lot of that on gear. Again, you know, it's something we saw with TBC, so I can understand why they didn't allow that to happen. What's really great about Reforging to me is that it actually demonstrates Blizzard are willing to put another layer of complexity into the game. Now, thus far in Cataclysm, there's been a lot of cool stuff, but I have been a little bit worried, honestly. A little bit concerned with the fact that the stats right now seem to be oversimplified, and the talents right now seem to be oversimplified. Beta is beta, which means that it could get changed at any time over the next few months. I mean, Bobby Kotick reckons it's going to be out before Christmas. Blizzard's like, WTF, what you saying, Bobby? We might not be ready. Done when it's done. I really hope Blizzard wins that battle. That's all I can say. I hope that contract was strong enough to let them say, no, we ain't finished. Let us finish the product. We do not release half-assed. Please, let them get their fortitude back and get their spine in order to resist that kind of nonsense. So, it's good stuff, overall. I'm looking forward to it. It should be absolutely fantastic. And it's great that they're adding that complexity. I'm so very, very glad that they're adding that complexity. So what we've got is the ability to min-max in an even better way. What we had previously is we had to pick gear based on, well, what exactly? There's a few things. One of them would be the fact that it's the only thing that dropped, for instance. That's bad. You know, that isn't a good thing. That's not choosing gear. You're min-maxing based on RNG drops there. That's a terrible idea when you think about it. You know, I end up being over-hit capped for a wide variety of reasons. Just because that's what I happened to get. Honestly. Hey, this is what just dropped. Right. This is all I can do, isn't it? This is all I can take. I know these gloves have too much hit on them, but it's better than what I've got right now. Now you don't have to do that. Now you can tweak. Now you can say, well, I can take those gloves, and what I can do is I can take away some of that and change something else. It gives a awesome opportunity for theory crafters and for raiders to take control of their own gear and say, you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen. Because right now with stuff like, you've got the RAW client, and you can use that to find out what the best gear is. You can use max DPS and a bunch of other different sites to find out. But this is going to throw that into a whole different ballgame. Now you've got to figure out, well, this looks like it's the best item, but what if we were to take some stats away and change it to something else? Or what if we were to take an item that previously wasn't as big a deal, and then change the stats to something that's even more delicious? We can do that, because Blizzard's letting us do that, and that's great. Because up until now, it just seemed to me that Blizzard has been afraid, gun-shy of adding more complexity because people won't be able to handle it. I think, you know, they took the Path of the Titans out for that reason. They made guild talents dumbed down. They made them guild perks because it's easier. You know, there would be less decision-making involved. Removing decision-making powers away from the player is bad. The current way the talent system is set up, for instance, is non-ideal when it comes to allowing the player to make decisions. And that's something I think needs to be altered. They need to widen the talent trees, because right now there just aren't any choices. And if you can't balance your choices, Blizzard, hire somebody that can figure that one out for you. Let's see some of that legendary balance that you've been known for the past decade. In this case, I applaud them for adding more complexity. More of that, please. Reforging is one of the best features of Cataclysm. Let's see more. Let's see more variety in terms of stats and what we can do with it. It's awesome. Big fan of that, and looking forward to making people rage when I put Spirit on Shadowmourne. My name is Tall Biscuit. You are listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. I'll be right back after this, folks. Enjoy.